Well, hello everybody. This is Chris over at Dixieland Farm, and I figure I would take you on a small little flight virtually. And I thought would be fun is to take you over where I grew up and tell some little stories as we fly. And you can see why I kind of enjoy sometimes going on these little virtual tours in the air in my flight simulator. So, a little background: I grew up on Long Island, New York, in a town called Huntington, specifically the city of Melville, which is part of the township of Huntington, which is not too far away from Farmingdale. And Farmingdale has Republic Airport, and I always used to love going to Republic Airport. There was a restaurant there called it was the 56 Fighter Squadron, and it was just kind of a normal American restaurant, but it had headphones. It had headphones, as a matter of fact, similar to this, and you could listen to live the tower and watch airplanes take off. And I thought that was the coolest thing as a kid. When I got my driver's license, gas was cheap, and I enjoyed driving very much. I used to drive and park at Republic Airport, and I would watch the airplanes take off. When I worked in the news, I was originally a cameraman, and then I became a live truck operator, and then I became a helicopter photographer because of my love of aviation, and we flew out of Republic Airport. So I got very used to being in the air around that area. Doing it virtually in X-Plane is different, but we are using ortho scenery, which means satellite imagery is laid into the simulator, and then stuff is laid on top of it, which may or may not work out, but usually it works out pretty good, especially now that I've got it all tweaked. So I'm going to take off in a plane that I purchased online, obviously. This is a Grumman airplane. Grumman was a big aviation thing on Long Island, very close to Farmingdale. I know Lockheed was sometimes based out of there, but I believe Grumman was closer to Bethpage and Hicksville. Show you real quick what we were basically doing flight-wise. We're just going to be basically going from Farmingdale straight up through Huntington, sort of near Northport. And you see where it says here, stacks? Those are the smokestacks. When I was a kid, when I saw the smokestacks, we were getting close to the beach because we would pass the smokestacks. My mother used to like going to Hobart Beach, which was really called Sand City. The official name is Hobart Beach, but everyone called it Sand City, which was a little bit of a trek, but worth it. Getting ahead of myself, but there happens to be a GPS marker there, so I programmed in a flight plan here to pick up that GPS marker, and then we're going to cross the Long Island Sound over into Westchester near the White Plains area. We should kind of go right across Stamford and Greenwich there. Probably will edit some of this so we can just get there. But the Grumman Tiger airplane, there were a lot of them at Republic Airport, since I don't know if they were manufactured on Long Island, but Grumman was part of Long Island. So my grandfather worked for Grumman, by the way. So let's go ahead and try to start this thing. I am not a licensed pilot. I'm not even close to being a pilot. We are not following checklists. We're not following protocol. We are not following airspace regulations. We are pretending that the zombie apocalypse has happened, and we are holding on to some of our training, but we're just ignoring as if nobody exists in the sky. So we're certainly not contacting air traffic control, the tower, departures or arrivals, following any standards at all. We're not worrying about the airspace. We will just kind of arbitrarily go to an altitude that is probably what a VFR person would do. I have set the weather with some clouds because they're kind of pretty. Somewhere around 7,000 feet. We're not getting up to 7,000 feet. Let's go ahead, get to the Grumman, and take off. I've got this program called Aviator up, by the way. This is a paid program. So worth it. And it actually gives you a map, so we can kind of track our progress, hopefully figuring out some landmarks here. So as you see, we're at Republic Airport right now, and we are hopefully taking off from Republic Airport right onto 110 here, and somewhere around here should be Adventureland across from SUNY Farmingdale, and we'll get up to see the Long Island Expressway, my house. Oh look, 110 Sandpit. I know where that is. Let's get into the airplane. Here's the airplane. See if I can do this really slow and artistic. Does that look pretty? Yeah, that looks pretty. But we want you to get inside, so let's go ahead and open up the canopy. By the way, at Republic, you would never see an airliner that big. There are some jets that take off, but this is more of an executive airport. When I worked for the news division helicopter, there was a Gulfstream that was part of Cablevision. But you would never see a plane this big, but the artificial intelligence does not know that. That's okay. I'm just happy it's there, just like I'm happy that they take the time and put in. Can we see the traffic on the street back there? Some just went by. Yeah, there's some traffic over there. I assume they're waiting for some kind of ground clearance. Sure, but yeah, pretty cool that all this stuff is drawn in to give you the sense of realism. So how do you get into a Grumman airplane? What you would do is you would walk up the ramp, and these seats would actually fold upwards, and you'd slide your butt, and your butt would catch that seat, and it would push it down with you. That's how you get in that airplane. So I want you to strap in. We're going to remove the wheel chocks from the airplane. Removed. Closing the canopy. Now, this airplane, the front nose wheel here actually swivels. It doesn't do anything. That's not the easiest thing to do in the simulation. You do differential braking where you brake a little bit here, brake a little bit there. But in the sim, that's not so easy to do. So they're kind of cheating and doing nose gear. So I'm still steering with the rudder pedals to control the nose gear as if it was like a Cessna, which is not the way the Grummans are done at all. I've done it in the past, but I'm embarrassed at how bad my steering would be. So we're going to allow the cheat. Let's get inside that aircraft. And we got the keys right here. Let's go ahead and grab them and turn them. We're going to remove the lock there. We're going to take a look outside and test our flight controls. Everything seems to be operational. Great. Let's take a look down here. We're, again, not following a checklist, but we're going to pretend we know what we're doing, which is turning on the fuel pump real quick. Yep, turned on the fuel pump. We're going to turn on the navigation lights, the strobe lights, the beacon, the landing lights. I more than likely will forget to shut these off, but that's okay. We are, in fact, just in a simulator. Normally you'd yell to people, clear, but of course you'd be an idiot because you're just yelling to yourself in a room by yourself. Oh, forgot to get that avionics master on, and let's get the engine going so we can at least stop wasting battery here. The starter. Got that parking brake on? We do. Fuel pump is off. We are outside. And now that we turn the engine on, look, there's you, the co-pilot, and me. The haircut's getting close. I just trimmed it today. Okay. We got the GPS here. We're going to get our flight plan loaded in that I saved earlier. It is this one. So, leaving Farmingdale, going to that GPS waypoint, and then we're going to be turning. We're going to turn that to GPS, so that way we can turn on the autopilot a little bit later. I'll probably have to pause the simulator. Normally I wouldn't, but I just want to have some time to talk, so I might pause the simulator if I have to. Someone taking off? Let's take a look real quick. Now, looks like someone's landing over there, huh? We got everything under control here? Yeah, I think so. I think we're good. You good over there? Oh, wait a minute, you're not here now, huh? To fasten your seatbelt. All right, so we're gonna hold short right here before we get onto the runway, okay? So we got the RPM up to 1500, and what we're gonna do just real quick is a magneto check. So unlike a car engine, which has one spark plug that's just shooting, planes have something called a magneto that'll keep running whether there's electricity or not. There's two of them. So in case one fails, we have another one. So what we do is we look at the RPM, and we're going to be looking for just a small drop when we turn off one of the magnetos. That's just to ensure that the engine really is running. So as you can see here, we've got the engine right at 1500 RPM, right? And let's do a magneto check. So we're going to check one, and we see a drop. We're going to put it back up, and you can see that the RPM increases. Let's go ahead and check the other magneto. As you can see, we've got a small engine drop, and let's turn it back on. Listen, there's probably a lot more checks that we're going to do. You probably should be doing. You probably should be taking off with the fuel pump, but we're just going for it. All right, let's get flying. Come on. All right, tower. So we're clear. We're clear. November 8th, 1089. Sure, clear. Let's get out of here. Come on. A little fast, but let's get going. Straighten this up on the runway just a little bit. Okay, we are almost at takeoff speed. Let's go. We are taking off, folks. And this plane, it takes off. I mean, it goes pretty quick here. We are flying over Dave & Buster's right now. Here is Route 110, the road that I lived off of. As we increase, right over here is roughly where SUNY Farmingdale is. Somewhere. Now, some of the scenery is being programmed in here, so it's going to be a little tough. Somewhere right around here. Let's take a look outside real quick. Would be where Adventureland is. So there's SUNY Farmingdale. Oh, I'll be honest, it's tough. It's been too many years for me to really identify where. But Adventureland was really small anyway. It was basically like a county fair that was just permanently there. There was a movie sort of based on it, and that was called Adventureland with Kristen Stewart. My gosh, we're already up to the Long Island Expressway here. So, the Long Island Expressway, then right about here is where my job was in college, which was a place called Foods A-Comin'. And it was basically like, what, Open Table? Not Open Table. What's the food delivery service now? I'm in the stick, so I don't have it. But this was like before its time. This guy bought this franchise, and that was the idea. You wanted TGI Fridays, I'd go and pick it up. There was a $3 service charge. He was getting a kickback from the restaurant, and then I'd get a tip. But again, that was back when gas was cheap. 99 cents a gallon, $1.20 a gallon, the most of it. So, yeah. But we're going into the town of Melville already. And I'm just kind of flying blind right here, just so we can talk. This is the Northern State Parkway and Route 110. If I recall, right there is my home when growing up. And right here in the corner was a McDonald's. And for 1 or 2 years, my bus stop was McDonald's. So, yeah, there was a mall over here. There was a TSS. It became something else years later, but I don't remember. But yep, that is where I grew up, right there. And as kids, we could, there was access to this big park, and we'd actually just walk up there and wander around. They were like Vietnam vets that were just hanging out up there, living. And it was the 80s, just like in Stranger Things, when kids watch Stranger Things, like they just don't believe it, that the kids could be, disappeared and gone, and we disappear all the time. We never told my mom where we were going. We were just up in a big forest. She had no idea. And we'd end up everywhere, or if we rode our bikes, everywhere. Alright, so let's get back in the cockpit here, right? So, we are coming up slowly. Ever so slowly. Let's get an outside view. Right over here is, I believe, Sand City, right? That's what I'm pointing at. And over here is Ashoroken. Anytime there was a hurricane, they would send a crew to this one very tiny strip because it would flood during hurricanes. And we're going to be able to see Northport and the smokestacks that I saw as a kid. I was overjoyed when I loaded up the scenery, and probably one of the plugins that I had adds different things that are on those maps, and it added those smokestacks. And more importantly, it added 4 smokestacks. the 4 smokestacks meant something to me because it was my mom, my dad, me, and my brother. And then there was like a box where the actual power station was. And to me, that was my dog house, Lance, my dog growing up. That's what my kid brain thought. And my adult brain still thinks that because that's what my kid brain thought. Let's fly overhead. I probably should be paying attention to flying because we are going off course. Let's do exactly that, huh? Woo! Sorry about that, folks. And let's reduce that speed. We are going way too high. We're just going uncontrolled. All right. Instead of talking to you and giving this lesson, I should be paying attention to flying. So we've definitely decreased the speed here. We're still slightly climbing. Yeah, let's bring right about to 2200 RPM. Great. What do we got outside? Pause it again. So, this is Northport and then Centerport. Centerport is where we spread my father's ashes. That was one of the beaches that we would go to if we just didn't feel like the long drive, because it was kind of lengthy to get all the way around here over into that Sand City that I told you about earlier, right? It's like a 40-minute drive, 30-minute, 40-minute drive. So we could get to Centerport in 20 minutes. And we had my father's ashes here in North Carolina. He died when he was 59, pretty young. So we had him back in New York, and then we moved down here. My mother just didn't know what to do with the ashes. And then we went back up to New York, and she's like, let's spread your father's ashes. And this was Christmas. And we had to break into Centerport because it was closed for the season. It wasn't very hard, but we did. And we went down to this strip over here in Centerport where my father would sometimes fish. My mother would clam. She used to love putting her feet in the dirt and clamming and grabbing the clams. And I don't know why she thought Christmas was a good time, because now Christmas, Father's ashes, right? That's in there now. And it was a horribly rainy and cold day and windy. If you've seen The Big Lebowski, if you've seen Life Stinks, you know where I'm going with this. This is absolutely a true story, and this totally happened. I wore a lot of my father that day. But that is where the ashes were. Also, interestingly, up on this road over here is Vanderbilt's mansion. Vanderbilt had a mansion there, and that is where my sister-in-law, my youngest sister-in-law, got married. So I thought about my dead father, I thought about growing up, and Vanderbilt when we went up there for her wedding. On the right side, right here, can we zoom in? Can we even see it? We see, yes folks, 4 smoke stacks right there, welcoming. So I dove here once with my friend Glenn, who worked at the news station. He died in 9/11, so he was a cameraman, and then he ended up getting a job for the police department, filming crime scenes, doing surveillance and things like that. And he was at 9/11, and he went up to help people, and then the building came down on him. But I mention this because Glenn was a diver, and once he found out I was a diver, we went and we dove there. It is illegal to get lobsters, but a lot of people did right there because the heat from that power station would attract the lobsters. So I don't eat lobster, I don't care. I can't remember whether he grabbed it or not, but that is a factoid about that little area there. All right, folks, so since I already did that flight plan, I'm letting the autopilot take over. That way I can concentrate on talking to you just a little bit longer, and we can go outside and take a nice look at us fly. That is what I grew up with. Suburban houses everywhere. Over here on your left is actually Cold Spring Harbor. So where Billy Joel has that album, Cold Spring Harbor, that is Cold Spring Harbor. And there was something called Target Rock over there, which I think they used in World War II. It was just a big rock, and they would just try to shoot it, I think, as training exercises, the military. Remember over here where I was talking about Centerport and then Sand City? In my later years, early 20s, I actually had an inflatable boat that I would row all the way across, or occasionally I had an electric motor and I would motor across. I also had a like styrofoam sailboat that I used to drive, used to boat across, which was pretty looking at it from the air, it looks like a pretty big distance, doesn't it? Matter of fact, I believe I took the same boat and I went over to Target Rock and back. Oh, look at that. We got some kind of something or other. Looks like a lighthouse. Isn't that cool? And we've got Connecticut over here. Now that we're 4,000 feet in the air, you can see that orthographic orthophoto scenery, how cool it really is. We used to swim across over here too. I don't know what this was, but it's just a big cement thing in the middle of the water. Sand City is where I also, and also Centerport, both places, is where I had my swimming lessons as a kid. My mother, rightfully so, thought that I should learn how to swim in the open water, not a pool, because the open water is much trickier. She was right. And I have no fear, and she thought I'd have no fear of the water, which I do not. So, good on her for making me take swimming lessons. Look how pretty that is as we fly, huh? Love X-Plane. All the little details. Some people complain that the water doesn't move enough, but the reflections here, mwah! Love it. Smokestacks. There we go. Just you and me. Just two dudes wearing plaid. I'm wearing plaid right now. Oh, look at that. The GPS is telling the plane to turn. So we were looking at Norwalk, actually. And we're going to be looking now at Stamford. How cool is that? Let's take a look outside. Goodbye, Long Island. Hello, Connecticut. Like I said, those clouds are kind of pretty. Do you want to see what they look like at dusk? We can go ahead and change the time real quick and we'll change it back. It'll be a little easier to land in the daylight, but there's the sun. Ah, now isn't that pretty? I often like to fly at this time. I enjoy these romantic flights with you, I honestly do. Alright, let's go ahead and change the daylight back here. Here we go. Beautiful, 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 folks. Alright, it says it's going to take 7 minutes to get to the airport, which is right on the border of Connecticut and New York, right outside White Plains. Can we see it from here? There's the airport right in front of us, folks. You can see some cities are being drawn in. Let's go ahead. I'm going to speed up time just so we can get there. We are 5 minutes from the airport. Let's go ahead and disengage the autopilot. Let's get that airplane down. Let's get that speed down. We're at now roughly 3,300 feet. The airport is roughly at 500 feet. We have a runway right in front of us. Let's use that. It'll be easier for me. It'll look like I know what I'm doing. I don't. Again, there is zero wind that we are compensating for here. We do not have to worry about winds. We are assuming that this runway is active. We are assuming that the airport told us we could just land and not join an actual traffic pattern, which I could do, but I'm not going to because I want to end this video. 2,300 feet now. We're doing great, folks. I know it doesn't look like it, but we're doing great. Let's make sure we're outside. We're doing okay outside? Nobody's around? I love how there's cars on the roads. It's little details like that that are just awesome. As we get closer to the airport, that scenery does get a little blurry, but that is okay. We are getting close to the threshold, folks. We are ready. We are lined up. We are flaring, cutting our power. So we can just gently, ever so gently, land. Pulling back on the elevator here to help slow us down. But we can leave at Taxiway Charlie. Let's go ahead and do that, folks. Nobody's coming? We're good? Alright. Let's go ahead and just arbitrarily park this so we can look at what the landing looks like from outside, alright? We get that flare just right. Just want to land on the back wheels. Back wheels, but we did bounce. I'm still working on bounces, I'll be honest with you. But other than that, perfectly acceptable. And you even bounce in real life. I mean, that's just part of it. But you shouldn't. You know, a good pilot doesn't, but it does happen. Let's go ahead and open up the canopy. Let's add our chocks. Good, we're out. I hope you enjoyed this flight, and you can see why I kind of enjoy flying around a lot of places that I knew. A little nostalgic. It's also a little fun. Breaks it up a little bit. I also fly in places that I've never been, and I fly in places that I wish I was. I fly around a lot of different places. So that is one flight, you and me, in X-Plane. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Take care.